someone told me the sun never shines in Ireland. Must be because the saint is present, huh? He's brought the sun with him. In Italy, there's a lot of sun, a lot of wine, a lot of sea, and a lot is very beautiful. And I'm very happy to be here. It's an extremely beautiful country. But we have some schools here. I'd like to know the names of the school. Which is the girls' school? Scotty? Sorry? Fantastic. What about the boys' school? Sorry? Okay. We just have those two schools and then another one. That's fantastic, these two schools. And I'm really happy to see you here today because Carlo Acutis, how many of you have heard of Carlo Acutis? The children. Yeah, you've been learning a little bit about Carlo, huh? He is going to be the first saint, young saint of this new generation. And you are at school when that's going to happen. It's going to happen on the 27th of April 2025. And we're going to have Saint Carlo Acutis. You know how old he was when Carlo died? He was just 15. Can you imagine that you can be a saint at 15? Now, most of you children are younger than 15, is that true? So you have time to be a saint. You still have time, huh? To be a saint. And that's why we brought this relic. What does it mean, a relic? What is a relic? You see in this beautiful gold container, you can see near the altar, we have a relic. What does it mean, a relic? If we say we have a saint, like St. John, St. Paul, St. Francis, St. Carlo, it means the church says they are alive in heaven. They died physically, but they live now. It's exactly what we heard in the gospel. You live forever. Ever and ever. There's no more death anymore. That's what it means when the church says someone is a saint. But we leave and bring a part of their body amongst us to tell us they too lived on this earth. They lived like you. Carlo went to school like you. Carlo had family like you. Carlo loved dogs and cats. He had 5 dogs. How many of you have dogs? He had cats. How many of you have cats? He had lots and lots of goldfish. How many of you have goldfish? Oh, wow, a lot of you have goldfish. He played a musical instrument, a saxophone. How many of you play a musical instrument? That's great. That's fantastic. And he loved Pokemon. Do you know what Pokemon is? He was especially talented with computers and internet. He really was a genius with the internet. And he had a weak spot. You know what his weak spot was? That he constantly was tempted. He loved Nutella, chocolate. You know Nutella? He loved Nutella chocolate. So, it means he was a kid exactly like every one of us, which is why we bring this relic. You know what is the relic we bring today? The part of the body we bring today is really, really important, really special. It's a part of the heart of Carlo Acutis. Can you believe it? It's a part of his heart there. The most important organ in our body is the heart. You know what keeps us alive? Our heart. It's our heartbeats, huh? Can you hear your heart beating? You know how many times our heart beats every year? In 1 year, how many times does our heart beat to keep us alive? How many do you think? 5, 10, 35 million. 35 million beats every year to keep us alive. But what does your heart beat for? What does your, and that's the thing about Carlo Acutis, because Carlo, who came from a very wealthy family, really rich. Imagine his father owns the largest insurance company in Italy. It's a family business. So very wealthy. But his parents never went to church. They only went to church when they were baptized, first communion, and it became their last communion. Some of you are going to receive communion now, shortly. Even amongst your teachers and the adults, how many of us go to church? No, I didn't want to know, it's okay. I'm very happy, yeah. But it's a question mark, you know? It's a question mark, because Carlo, even though his parents didn't go to church, he said, I want to go to church, to Mass, because he knew there was a secret to life. God gave him love, and he was full of joy about that. You know, Carlo has many small sayings, and one of the sayings that I really like about Carlo, he says, from whatever point of view you look, life is always fantastic. Can you say the same? Life is always fantastic, he said. Because he knew what he sang, the girls sang beautifully, do not be afraid, I am with you. He knew that. But who was with him? Who do you think was with him? Jesus. He discovered that secret. And so he said, I want to receive communion early. At 7 years old, he said, I want to receive communion. And the parish priest, like Father Frank, said, you can receive communion at 7. And on that day he received communion. He wrote something down on a book. He said, I have a plan for my life now. It's amazing, a 7-year-old boy. He said, I have a plan for my life. Always to be united with Jesus. Beautiful. And that's really amidst a beautiful life, with friends, with computers, with dogs, with cats, swimming, hiking. His parents used to travel a lot because of their work. It's all this life, he always wanted to be united with Jesus. So he wanted to go to Mass every single day. And because he wanted to go to Mass when he was 7, 8, 9, you don't send an 8-year-old kid to Mass on his own. His parents had to go with him. And now his parents are full of fire for Jesus. He brought his parents back to church. Now, some of your parents don't go to Mass. Maybe you go home tonight and say, why don't you go to Mass on Sunday? I followed it. You're fantastic, huh? And Carlo wanted to pray before Jesus. And Carlo wanted to receive confession frequently. And Carlo loved the Blessed Virgin Mary. This church is dedicated to the Immaculate Conception. He loved the saints. He said, I too want to be a saint. But what does it mean to be a saint? What do you think? What does it mean to be a saint?
Go back to class. How many more minutes?
It means, I'll say, one thing. To love. To love God and to love the people God puts in our life. Is there someone in our life you find difficult to love? Sometimes, huh? Is there someone at school maybe you don't like? Teachers, the adults here? Someone you find difficult to forgive? Someone who's done us wrong? To be a saint means to love. And that's what Carlo did. He particularly loved anyone who found life difficult. For example, kids who were bullied at school. Do you know what it means to be bullied at school? When you're picked on. Perhaps because you're not like someone else wants you to be, and they bully you. Well, Carlo took those kids under his wings and protected them, and stood up for them. Kids who had special needs, or who were disabled, Carlo would befriend them, love them, care for them. Those who were homeless on the streets, Carlo would spend his pocket money on them. You know, there was a soup kitchen where the poor went. And Carlo used to go out and help there as a little boy. It's amazing. If there were kids who had problems in their families, for example, the parents were going through a difficult time, or some families, there's only one mum and no dad, or there's only the dad and the mum is not present. It happens, sir. It happens. And Carlo said, that's okay. I'm going to love you as well. In fact, Carlo says a life becomes really beautiful when we love. And this all prepared him as well for great suffering in his life. You know, when Carlo was at school, he was just 15 years old, this kid full of life, full of joy, full of talents. He became like a magnet. People wanted to be his friend because he stood up for others. You know, one of Carlo's sayings is, God has created every one of us original, but we want to be photocopies. It's a fantastic saying. You know, yesterday I met someone in Tralee. He was a kid at school, and his teacher said, he doesn't like being so tall. If we're too tall, we want to be shorter. If we're short, we want to be tall. Is that true? If we're this, we want to be that. We don't want to be how God has created us. And you know, another one of Carlo's sayings, listen carefully, Carlo says, every person reflects the light of God. Everyone. You reflect God's light. Everyone here, God loves you. You reflect God's light. I want you to know that. That's what made Carlo's life so beautiful, so happy, so joyful. He became a magnet for others. Do you want to live life like that? Do you want to live life like that? You can begin. You know, Carlo, and I'm going to finish soon, Carlo was a genius with iPads. Do you know what an iPad is? Do you have an iPhone? It's a bit early to have an iPhone, but you'll get one day, yeah? You know who invented the iPhone and iPads? The name of that person? His name is Steve Jobs. And he was one of Carlo's heroes. Jesus was one of Carlo's heroes. But Steve Jobs was also one of Carlo's heroes because he loved the computer. And Carlo used to repeat a saying of Steve Jobs. You know what Steve Jobs used to say? I'm not interested in ending up the richest man in the cemetery. I'm not interested in ending up the richest man in the cemetery. What's the point? What interests me is going to bed every night and saying, I've done good for someone else. And that's what Carlo is. He's going to be a saint. Carlo died at the age of 15, as I said. He was young. It was a terrible disease. It took him very quickly. But there were so many people at his funeral. They were on the streets. Some were holding banners. did not know who these people were, and they asked, "Who are you? You're not part of our family. We don't know you." And they answered, "We are the kids who were bullied at school. We are the immigrants whom Carlo helped. We are the homeless whom Carlo gave a cup of hot chocolate to, or a sleeping bag. We are the homeless whom Carlo fed in the homeless shelter." They all come out to say, "Carlo helped us." And Carlo continues to help us from heaven. You know, I'll finish with this story. I had a couple of friends, a couple of people in Italy. One's a policeman, the wife is a teacher, and they came to me one day and they said, "The doctors have given us a medical certificate. We cannot have children. We really want to have beautiful children. We cannot have them." In fact, I read the medical certificate. It says, this couple is sterile. They cannot have children. They were in their 40s, so they're not young. And I said, "Will you allow me to pray with this relic of Carlo?" And I prayed with them. I blessed them as I'm going to bless you at the end of Mass. Because I want you to ask for a special grace. Something special of Carlo. He wants to help you. So I prayed for them with this relic. This was at the beginning of July last year. The wife, her name is Maria, she went to her parents' home that weekend. It's in the north of Italy. And she wasn't feeling well on the Saturday. This was 2 days after I blessed her with the relic. She went to the doctor on Monday, and the doctor said, after examining her, he said, "You know why you're not feeling well? Because you're pregnant. You're expecting a baby." That was July last year. I promise you this happened. Where the medical certificate said they were sterile, could not have children. In April of this year, almost 9 months to almost exactly, so it's mathematical, they had a beautiful young baby whom I baptized in June. You know what name they gave the baby? Carla, like Carlo, because they knew Carlo had helped them before Jesus to make the impossible become possible. Do you believe that can happen?